Hey everybody, my name is Asmara and welcome back to the channel. And in honor of Women's History Month, before the month wraps up, I wanted to take a moment to revisit some of my older videos that discuss women's experiences in gaming, as well as in just content creation in general. I wanted to kind of revisit some of these videos because I did something similar for Black History Month. I'll go ahead and link that video up in a card up above. But I wanted to do something similar for Women's History Month. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into it. We're gonna talk about representation, we're gonna talk about like visibility, we're gonna talk about some of the struggles being like a woman making gaming content online, some of the things I love about it. We're gonna talk about the whole nine. So let's go ahead and get right in. This first video clip that we're gonna look at is actually from my interview I did with Keeyuh. Keeyuh is a fellow content creator. She's over on Twitch, and then she also re-uploads clips from her streams on YouTube. And in this particular clip, she kind of talks about her experience being a woman as a Twitch streamer and some of the struggles that's brought about, as well as just how that's overall impacted her. So let's take a look at this first clip. So I remember in your 100K unboxing video, you mentioned that something that meant a lot to you was showing that girls could game. And that's something that you wanted to show through your content. So is that something still like relevant to, I guess, the mission of your channel today?
Yes, honestly, I feel like I would say now I would lean more towards trying to let people know that girls are in this community in general, even not gaming, but I started on YouTube, now I'm more on Twitch. Twitch is not just gaming because honestly, like I said, I don't play Call of Duty anymore. I don't really care for The Sims 4. I do game sometimes, but in these spaces, you're so used to seeing men. And then even if it's just a girl on Twitch doing her makeup, let her be in this space. Women are in these spaces. It's not just for you and your homeboys anymore. That's how I feel. So not just gaming. Gaming is important because women are still counted out. But just in these spaces like Twitch and YouTube, and not just social media models, and like we are everywhere, everywhere. Okay,
we do everything. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I definitely love that Keeyuh talked about the fact that women are in content creation, but not just in the kind of like the stereotypical way people assume us to be in this space. I think it's so important that we see women succeeding in not just like beauty, lifestyle, and fashion spaces, which those are all fine. Like, of course, I mean, I watch those types of creators as well, so I'm not saying anything's wrong with being a creator in those sort of like categories, but it's just as important to see women succeeding in other niches that you may not typically like see us in, like she said, gaming. And I also like how she also mentioned that Twitch is not just gaming, which of course gaming is kind of what made Twitch its platform and got a lot of its popularity, but there's also a lot of different other types of content on Twitch, and I'd also be interested in seeing what other types of people would be drawn to Twitch. I've definitely seen non-gaming creators like start Twitch accounts and start streams over there. I'm wondering like if Twitch was seen more beyond just the gaming side, like how our perception of the women's role as a creator could change possibly. I don't know, just like a thought, thinking out loud here. This is a question from Lex in your Discord server. So they want to know, what obstacles have you faced being a gamer in a male-dominated platform?
Perfect question. I feel like there are a lot of people that make similar content to me, but since they are a male, you notice the difference in numbers. And that's even related to how they say men make more money than women. Like, I feel like it's like the same thing, basically. Like, I don't know. People have more respect for men, I guess, when it comes to working and when it comes to gaming. But it's like I said, I feel like it should be more of an equal playing field because we exist in these spaces.
That's also a good point too, is like, I would love to see if somebody has done research on like, because I've seen like the statistics of like how much women make for like a man's dollar. I've seen those types of statistics. I wonder what the difference would be in the creator economy, or like if there's like what the discrepancy is. Because I would just say on a surface level, as of like this point in my life, I majority follow women in the space. I follow a lot of Black women, a lot of, BIPOC women in all different kind of content niches. But you definitely notice the difference in subscriber count, I will say, or view count when it comes to these creators who are making the same, if not better content to like some other creators who get a lot more recognition and get a lot more love. And then again, it's not to discredit any like mainstream white creators or non-Black creators, but it's just, I mentioned that to show the discrepancy in the playing field. I remember talking a little bit about this in my panel discussion we did, Claiming Space for Black Women in Gaming, which that's a video clip I reacted to in actually my Black History Month video. But we talked about how content creation is not just a meritocratic space. Is that word? A meritocracy. Meritocracy. You know what I mean. It's not a meritocratic space, but people tend to think, and it's typically people who are at a higher level of privilege and power, that like just putting effort into your videos is what's going to make it get views and is what's going to make the subscriber count go up, when really it's a lot of different factors. There's a lot of factors that are in your control, like content strategy, for example, and then there's also a lot of factors that are outside of your control, like algorithms, the bias that is in machine learning. It's not a surprise that some people's videos get promoted, whereas other people's videos do not get promoted as much. I think people don't really talk about the discrepancy that's in the creator economy just because I think it's more comfortable to see cyberspace and like technology, the online world, as being like objective or benign or kind of like a utopia from real world social structures. But it's important that we see what's happening on the internet. And this is something I kind of talked about in my video essay where I talked about the Berlizzi blip and the disproportionate way YouTube flags content. It's a similar like concept there, where not all creators are being treated equally, even if we are on the same platform or even if we are in the same niche. And I think that discrepancy exists. It exists between race. I think it exists between gender, and especially if you're in a content niche that I don't even want to say male dominated, but like just male centric, because I would say like half of gaming creators are women at this point. But the normalization of kind of like masculinity in gaming in general and also online, it impacts how we view gaming. It impacts how we engage with gaming culture. And so I feel like it should be more normalized to understand that like real life social structures are simulated online.
So I feel like one of the main things, I guess I could call it an obstacle because I used to like feel bad about it. I'll look at people that do similar things to me and I'm like, my numbers, they don't do what they do. You know what I mean? But it's just a male dominated space. And it's came a long way. It has come a very long way, but there's still more work to be done. There's definitely more work to be done. Because I feel like if I was a dude, my YouTube would be amazing, but I'm a girl, so we can't get those numbers yet.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of reiterates just kind of like what I was saying, about just the discrepancies in the creator economy. But I'm glad Keeyuh definitely was candid and open about her experience. And it is something that you just notice also as a viewer, as somebody who engages with gaming content online. That discrepancy is definitely there. And I forget what exactly she said that reminded me of this, but I think it's also so important that we see a diverse representation of women as gamers. Keeyuh mentioned earlier in her interview that she used to play Call of Duty, and if you see the full clip, which by the way, the full clips of everything I'm reacting to today will be in the description, or the full videos, I mean. So if you want to watch anything in full, be sure to check the links down below. But yeah, Keeyuh was saying that she used to play Call of Duty, and then her channel definitely grew from playing The Sims 4. But I think it's so important that we see women in all different types of, gaming spaces. Women who do like those shooter games, women who like MMOs, women who like role-playing games, women who do like more casual or cozy games. It's important that we see women at the top of like tech and game development companies. It's important that we see women who are behind the scenes. Maybe they're really into computer building and more of that technical side. Like, it's so important that we see women in just the whole scope of the gaming space, not just content creation, even though that's definitely important. It definitely impacts how we interact with gaming and how we view gaming, but we need to be seen everywhere, and that representation is so important as well. This next video clip is from my video essay called "You're Not a Real Gamer," and I basically deconstruct what it means to be a gamer in society, kind of the stereotypical image that we've created of this term, why that image exists in the first place, and how that image definitely creates oppression for people who don't fit into that stereotype or that mold. So yes, this is definitely one of those video essays that I think has a lot of really good information, and I really love how it helped other people and people from different communities feel seen. It was one of my first few video essays, so not perfect, but I think this section about women in gaming, I think makes some good points. So let's watch it. So another aspect onto why people struggle calling themselves a gamer, and that is gender identity and sexism. I will say this has a lot of overlap with like casual gamers, or what, you know, society stereotypes as being a casual game, but I think sometimes we just blanket women under this category. But yeah, we'll get into it, but I just wanted to clear that up. My research paper says of 176 self-identified gamers, only 14.4% were females, whereas 85.6% were male. Further, in a study of about 1,400 US teenagers, researchers found that only 35 of female adolescents identified as gamers, whereas 69 of young males did. MI continues to say that both me not playing games every day and the fact that I'm a woman contributes to me not using the term gamer to describe myself. And that's a theme I've definitely seen a lot, and that's definitely something I've personally experienced, you know, as a female and as a woman who is in this gaming space. Okay, something I did want to mention, looking at this video in retrospect, I noticed that I typically used women and female interchangeably, and I understand like why I did that, because, you know, I didn't want to keep saying women, 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 like you know, a bunch of times. I was trying to find like synonyms to use for women. In retrospect, I would have just used women repetitively because I think referring to women as females is reducing them down to like their reproductive organs, which can definitely be exclusionary to people who might identify as a woman but may not share those same reproductive organs. So that's something I have learned since, you know, filming and the writing of this video in particular. And I just wanted to clear that up. I do use, you know, female and women interchangeably. I wouldn't do that today anymore just because it just sounds a little bit odd, you know, because we don't typically do the same thing for men. But although I did use male and men in this video as well, but you get the point, you know, there's a discrepancy of reducing a woman to like her organs, you know? So for now on, I'm going to be referring to like women in gaming as just that. A woman gamer, a woman in gaming, a girl gamer. So yes. So that leads me to my next question. Why are women, generally speaking, typically more hesitant to assert themselves as a gamer? My research paper touched on a lot of really great points. The male gamer stereotype leads to a marginalization of women in video game culture. That's what we were talking about before. These spaces oftentimes become hostile to women. Obviously, you know, we often associate, especially like those first-person shooter games or like where you chat with people online, can definitely be hostile towards women and also minorities, racial minorities. And then also something else, Keeyuh in her video was talking about her experiences in Call of Duty lobbies when she first started gaming, and I definitely think that it kind of perpetuates this stereotype of a gamer that we already kind of hold, but that's another thing she does talk about in her interview, if you do want to listen to more of it. And then also I wanted to add that the discrimination in gaming, in this particular example, we're talking about like voice chat games, doesn't just have to be against gender or race. It can be about sexuality. It can be bigotry of, you know, any time, ableism. So of course, this is one of my earlier video essays. I could have done better with, you know, representing different groups in different minority groups, but my particular focus when making this video, like my thought process making this script, is to focus on like my own identity as a Black woman and kind of how I've been excluded from the gamer term. But of course, there's research about other minority groups and how they've been affected by said term. So yeah, just wanted to clear that up as well. That definitely leads to like a negative sort of psychological effect on how women are treated in this video game culture. Feeling unwelcome, isolated, or like a misfit in a hobby that is otherwise appealing. Even stronger than that are the direct negative psychological effects of verbal and sexual harassment directed at women. And kind of going off, and I talk about this a little bit later, but yeah, I definitely think it's just like the fact that harassment has been kind of like normalized in like a game culture. And of course, that's not every single gamer or every single person that identifies, you know, with this community. But I think just the fact that that's like the stereotype we still think of, or like that's still just a assumed part of the culture, is telling about kind of like the normalization of harassment that has been in the gaming space historically and how that influences us in present day. So that's just some food for thought, you know, even though you may not be a problem, you know, in particular, I definitely think complacency in these systems is just as bad as being, you know, a perpetrator. And so that's something else just to be mindful of as well. I think the assumption that women don't belong in the gaming space can be done in overt or covert ways. So overt ways is obviously like the direct, you know, verbal or sexual harassment in voice chats, for example, or online forums. And then other covert ways could be just the idea that you didn't expect to see a woman in this space. I know I've been told by like several, or okay, and I think sometimes we exaggerate, or sometimes I exaggerate and say several. I remember this happened once or maybe twice, but I remember just in passing conversation, I mentioned something about like playing video games. And it's happened a couple times where like a man will be like, I did not expect a girl. I didn't expect you to be interested in video games. Like when I was growing up, girls didn't play games, which of course is, you know, not factual. Women have always been in this space. And what is this piece of hair doing? Oh my goodness. There's definitely been times where people assume that I don't understand something because of maybe the types of games that I play, the type of gamer that I am. There's been people who just completely assume that as a woman, I just don't belong in this space as well. Even times I've told people about my YouTube channel, people don't expect somebody who looks like me, quote unquote, to be making gaming content on YouTube. They expect me to not have that as a part of my identity because of the way that I physically present. And those, I think, are more covert ways that misogyny has kind of creeped its way into the definition of a gamer, and something that needs to be checked, you know? When especially you see your buddies and your homeboys, you know, talking about, you know, kind of perpetuating these stereotypes of what a gamer can look like and what a gamer is. I think it's so important that we don't leave those behaviors unchecked or those thought processes unchecked. That's how they keep getting perpetuated in kind of, you know, passing covert, subtle messaging that women don't belong in this space, or a woman who looks like that doesn't belong in this space. So just something to be aware of. It's like women don't start the problem, but we're like the only ones like expected to like fix it. And kind of going off of that, of course, the study said significantly less females use the voice chat in video games compared to men. Some people in my comments were telling me that they were being sexualized on video games by doing absolutely nothing, you know, for existing. People telling her to go to the kitchen. Just like examples like this. I think sometimes we kind of associate this sort of behavior, this sort of language with like young people who don't know any better, or like, you know, trolls or whatever.
That's what I was talking about
But
earlier.
I still think like the fact that like racism and like sexism and like slurs and harassing people, the fact that that's become a norm in video game culture and almost to be like the rule and not the exception, I think is very telling about this culture that has been created in these spaces. I'm sorry, but like harassment and racial slurs should not be normalized like anywhere. Like that's not something we should just get used to.
Yes. And something else I kind of thought about before we get into the last clip, this is probably something that kind of references something I was talking about earlier, but I think it's so important that we see diverse representations of women as gamers. And that kind of reminded me of a recent Instagram I saw from Cozy K. So this is an Instagram reel. I'll allow this to play.
Free time. Oh, I like to play games. Games? Like board games, or no, I do like video games. Video game. So are you like a gamer girl? Like, do you wear like cat ears and play like shooting games? No, more like casual.
Not the cat
games,
ears.
kind of, like farming games. Farming. So like Farmville? No. That That's so interesting for you. I never really got into video games. You know, I'm so bad at them. So what do you do in your free time?
That I felt like was on the nose. Kennedy described the situation very well. There's a couple things happening here. I think for starters, there's the idea that like a woman in gaming has to look a certain type of way. Like she mentioned, the cat ear headphones, or you know, the all pink setup and RGB lights and everything like that. But then also it kind of talks about this idea that gaming looks a certain type of way. And if you don't feel like you fit into the way that gaming looks, then you kind of exclude yourself from that definition. Hopefully that makes sense. I mean you as like the rhetorical you, like people. Sometimes like you think like, oh, if I have never really been into like a shooting game, or I don't really know much about like video games, so I'm just gonna say that gaming is not for me, when really people haven't actually engaged with, you know, the culture, or haven't actually engaged with gaming to really say that for sure. But I feel like there's kind of like a gatekeeping of like who can be a gamer and who can't be, which is kind of like the problem that I feel like she's alluding to here, and kind of what I've been talking about in these various video clips. Gaming does not look a certain type of way, and gamers do not look a certain type of way. Women in gaming do not look a certain type of way. We do not all have the same setups. We don't all talk the same way. We're not all interested in the same things. And so I think this is a reason I think Kennedy's work is so important, and also just other people. When you're able to see proof that, you know, gamers look different types of ways and have interest in different types of games, it allows other people who can relate to that to see themselves in this space. And it also opens the door for other people who may not have been previously exposed to video games. If they can kind of see somebody that they can connect with in the space, then it gives them kind of like a way into a hobby that they might really enjoy. So I think like, you know, the gatekeeping of the gamers only looking a certain type of way, or women in gaming only being a certain type of way, definitely excludes people from that definition, and it excludes people from that identity. So, you know, I'm all about identity here, and talking about, you know, how we can take up the most space from our various, you know, parts of ourselves. But yeah, I don't know. I forget what exactly reminded me of this reel, but I wanted to share it with you guys. Alrighty, in this last clip, we're going to get a little bit into the representation of women characters in video games. I'm sharing this clip from an interview I did with a licensed family and marriage therapist. Her name is Angela Wu, and we talked about Life is Strange: True Colors. She talked about the different family dynamics and how it relates to Asian culture and Asian mental health. That's like her area of expertise. And so yeah, I wanted to play a brief clip here and just kind of expand on the representation of, you know, women characters in games, and just like what we can learn from Alex's story. Of course, as she is a woman protagonist in a mainstream video game. So let's get into it. I think another sort of defining moment, at least for Alex in her life, is how her family changes after her mother passes. So in another scene, we can see her brother Gabe sort of going more towards a rebellion sort of side, where Alex kind of is like the fixer, like wants to fix everything, and like you're saying, sort of take on this more parental role, even though she is like very young. So what do you notice in a family dynamic like this? What are like the, for lack of better words, good or bad or healthy or unhealthy sort of parts of these dynamics? And yeah, what do you notice?
Yeah, so I guess sibling order is really important too, and like gender. And so gender norms. So depending on like your family structure, right? Like, and how traditional these views are, you may either like conform to these frameworks, or you may rebel against these frameworks, right? And so with Gabe, it sounds like he's doing the more rebellious act, right? And maybe because he's a male, he's allowed to be more rebellious, right? But then there's an added dynamic, you know, from the cultural side, is that like Asian culture really values the male, like it's very patriarchal. And so like him rebelling is like a double no, because it's like, you're supposed to be the good son, you're supposed to carry the family, you know. And then when you have a dynamic where like one sibling is sort of like the rebellious one, it adds pressure to other siblings of like having to like make sure like they don't burden or hurt their parents in that same way.
I thought
So
that was an
then
interesting
they
point
may
too, how
become
she
very
connected
like
that.
accommodating, like people pleasing, perfect, because the last thing they want to do is rock the boat because they've seen the pain from what their other sibling has done.
Kind of fall into more codependent patterns, right?
Yeah, they become the one that stabilizes the family unit. Like that scene where Alex is in the middle between her dad and Gabe fighting, right? And she's like trying to stabilize it to the point where she even says, like, her dad pushes her or something, and she even says, "Oh, I'm not hurt," right? It's like denying her own self and her own pain in order to keep this family unit.
Yes. So I thought Angela brought up some really interesting points. I thought it was really interesting how she like roped in like gender norms and gender roles into kind of how Alex's character was portrayed in Life is Strange True Colors, which is not something I even like expected to talk about in the interview, but I thought it was just interesting. And there was a few more other examples she gave. I just pulled this specific clip. It got me thinking about kind of how women characters in games are represented and portrayed. I think sometimes we either see women as like being overly like sexualized characters, or sometimes just being like a parental like mother-like figure, or sometimes being more familial or like more docile. And not that I'm saying something malicious about Life is Strange True Colors in particular. But something I thought about is I'm wondering how these sort of gender norms can affect the way that we view women in real life. Like I was saying earlier, like gaming is a form of media. It affects how we interact with the world, how we see the world, how we engage with the world. It's a form of media just like anything else. And so what kind of messaging could be coming from the different ways we portray women in video games? And so that's a reason I definitely think it's important to show women in different ways, you know, women who aren't just mothers, who aren't just familial, also having some, you know, characters who are women be more individual and have, you know, different characteristics. Like I think something I did like about Alex's character is that she wasn't shown as being like an uber feminine type of person, but she also wasn't shown as being like uber masculine as well. Like sometimes I think in games or in entertainment we try to like either completely go against the stereotype or completely fall into the stereotype, but they never really show the gray area in between. And again, I feel like this is definitely like, it has improved and come a long way a lot, but I think sometimes that representation, that lack of representation still does exist. You should be able to be your own personality despite what society might expect from you because of your gender. I think Angela also makes a good point about like male characters oftentimes being like allowed to be a little bit more aggressive or kind of go against the grain. Whereas when women kind of assume these types of roles, and these are dynamics that exist in real life too, we're often seen as like, you know, a B word or being bossy or, you know, other not great things. And so I thought that was interesting as well, how she brought up the point of like what sometimes women are allowed to be in games. And again, this is not like a critique specifically of Life is Strange. I just think she brought up an interesting point. When's like the last time we did see like a woman character kind of going against the grain? And the first thing I thought of was Life is Strange 2, which, spoiler if you haven't seen it, but Sean and Daniel's mother, Karen, leaves their family, and she just decided that like motherhood wasn't a journey for her. Even though her kids were already grown, but she decided to leave the family and they had no contact or way to get in touch with her until, you know, throughout the game where Sean and Daniel eventually meet her again. And that's something else I thought was interesting, is that Karen was shown in a way that women aren't typically shown in media. She was really not the stereotypical mother. She was not the familial, like, you know, parent making her kids snacks and writing notes in their lunch boxes. Like she went against the grain, which is something I thought was just interesting. It's just like the different ways that this game kind of showed this character. And even if, you know, Karen, you don't like her, even if she's not lovable, or even if, you know, you personally wouldn't do that same thing or make that same choice, I think it's important that Life is Strange kind of included nuance in her character and made her different, you know? went against the grain. And I don't know how many times I can say that, but went against kind of what society expected of her. That can even go into like how women in gaming are expected to act. You know, if you are more of a palatable type of personality, like what is the difference in your numbers when it comes to content creation, like Keeyuh was mentioning earlier? When you talk about issues or experiences that you're facing online, like how was that received differently? If you are a woman or a specific, even particularly a Black woman, the more intersections we fall under, that definitely adds layers to this. It adds to how people perceive you, you know? So it's just like a lot of things to think about when it comes to like how women are expected to act, in how that affects the video game depictions we see, whether being overly sexualized or whether we see them being more familial. And then also how women content creators, gaming content creators are portrayed and seen and interpreted. So yeah, I think once again, this is an important conversation to have about how women need to infiltrate the space in all parts, behind the games, in the game development room, in the art design room, in the writing room, as well as being the ones, you know, playing the games and sharing the gameplay. There needs to be a diverse representation on both sides. And I actually talked more about this in my Continued Conversations episode I did for Life is Strange 2. That's available for my Monarch members. So if you want to watch that, I discuss more topics like this in that video. Alrighty, so that is my video revisiting some of my older video essays about, you know, topics relating to women's experience in video games, the representation of women in games, as well as, you know, our experiences in content creation in the online space. I hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, the original clips will be linked in the description, or the original videos will be linked in the description. If you want to watch more or learn more from anything that we talked about today, let me know in a comment if you learned anything new today, or if you have any other kind of thoughts that you want to expand on from things I talked about today. Of course, be sure to leave a like, as that helps, you know, show this video to other people. And with that being said, I will see you guys next time. Bye everyone.